Hi everyone, and welcome back to Now TV Canada at I Am Just Jen YouTube channel. I am Just Jen, your host. I was reading through the list of unsolved murders through Wikipedia and their research, and it is my intent to get through the list of all the names. I will read all of the names of every list of unsolved murders, whether individuals or in multiples or just singled out crimes that remain unsolved. Um, when I do these episodes, even if I have to do them intermittently, not all my videos will be as long as my recent ones have been. It's just because there's just a lot of information that needs to be said and shared, and I don't have the ability to cut and paste it in smaller amounts. I have so much stuff going on, so I got to get it out, and then down the road, people will cut it down, or even I will at times cut stuff down so there'll be smaller amounts of information to be less overwhelming for people to follow. So I left at off on this list at my grandmother's birth year, 1924, because this particular woman had a significant story, which is part of my issue with Canadian crime, just businesses in general, standards that I don't understand, makes no sense. Like the way our libraries used to be all carded, we had all those little boxes and we pull them out and we'd look for the information with the numbers and stuff. Does it really make any sense? Is it realistic? Is it feasible to do all of that work on cards, type it all up, shove it in the little boxes and shove them in the drawers and have those cabinets to just throw it in the garbage? To just incinerate it because we invent computers? Does it make any sense to not be allowed to have a backup? Does it not make sense to allow people to have the option to enjoy pulling out the drawer and going through the cards with their fingers without the headache of passwords, technology, cords, charging, Wi-Fi? Honestly, I missed the carding system. I preferred the carding system. It is a better system, and I'd love to return to the carding system, just like I missed microfiche. Now, some places still have some microfiche and took really good care of their papers. And when it comes to solving crimes, it's really relevant to have everything down to the nitty and gritty. I worked for A&W when I was 15 years old. It's one of the first jobs I ever got, legitimately hired, did all the paperwork. And the guy was so busy, I guess he was operating 3 locations, this manager. And I can remember the interview like yesterday. Sunny day, blue sky, beautiful weather, Winnipeg. McGregor and McPhillips, and sitting by the window. Interview went fine. I got hired because I was 15, old enough. I got my uniform. I started to get trained at a new location in Polo Park, which is still there and not new anymore. And we started learning how to use these new cash registers where computerized, pushing the buttons and it gives the change. So you don't need to be fast on the ball and being able to do the math and give the change, which is my weak point, math, because my mind is busy with other things. That change giving was not a priority. So this was a job I could do, and I was just learning how to do it. It put a fear into me with cash registers and working in those environments ever again after what happened. But I worked there for 2 weeks. My point of this job is that I'm so old, I go back so far. We had this machine in the back, in the kitchen, where all the food and the dishes are done. You had to punch into it. It's a punch-in machine with a little clock on it and everything, from my mom's era, my grandma's era. And you have these paper cards, these long ones, and they got the little holes, staples, and square marks in there. And you got to shove that thing in there, and it checks you in, and it marks you off, and it has your name and all your personal details. You can't really mess that up. You are an identifiable person. You are a series of numbers with a name and a social insurance number. So there is proof that I worked there for those 2 weeks. And then he had went on to a third location, and he was working at Inkster, and I chased him around to all 3 locations because I lived near the Inkster one and was interviewed at the other one in the same area of town, which was called the North End. The Polo Park one, where I was being sent to work, was actually the farthest one away from where I lived and where I was interviewed. But at any rate, I did not get paid. He had let me go. He had said, "Oh, you need to take this pile of paperwork home to your mom and get her to sign it because I made a mistake. I didn't realize you were that young." He wanted somebody who was 16. but you're legally allowed to work at 15 with your parents' permission. In fact, you can work at 14 with your parents' permission. I met a boy working at Shoppers Drug Mart in Fort St. John, BC, just in my recent years of life here. 14 years old, working at Shoppers Drug Mart at the till because he had his parents' permission, because he was a very responsible young man. And so he used that excuse to sort of find a way to make me wander off so he could just speedily push through to somebody else. And I hadn't done anything wrong. Everything I had learned was right, and I was doing well on all accounts. I love A&W root beer, and I love A&W onion rings, and I loved Albert and Walter, and so I'm not happy. So long or the short of it is, he saw me when I went into the Inkster location. I had the paperwork all filled out and signed up. I handed it in. He just said, "Oh, I don't remember you. Oh, I don't know you. Do I know you?" Right? Not even the conversation about the paperwork so I could go back to working, because she signed it, of course. When you're that in desperate financial need at that level of single motherhood and welfare on and off system, in and out of housing with your mom, you want work, right? To better life. So I never got paid. And I'm mad because those cards are there. The records were there. And this was in that time frame there. Like, it was one manager, 3 locations. How many years he worked there? 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. Long enough to have all the records and remember. So years passed, and I try finding people in A&W company to say, "Hey, I'd like to get paid with interest, please." I never quit, and I wasn't fired. He just asked me to fill out forms from my mom that said I could go back to work legally at 15 and a half. And I gave him that. And I just wanted to go back to work. And so they're like, "Oh, well, we have bad news for you." Eventually, I finally reached somebody. We don't keep the records. We don't keep files after a certain amount of time, 7 years, whatever. But there's no reason to get rid of that hardcore stuff. File it, put it somewhere safe, and you leave it there, because for taxes especially, you're supposed to, right? And for other records and information, when you're dealing with lawsuits, class action, and so on. You can't win the lawsuit now. You don't have anything to fall back on. At the very least, you should still have scanned in copies in the computer system, every single job application that's ever passed through A&W, all the interviews, the managers signed off on it, the locations, the dates, and the approval, the stamps where the person was actually hired. So there's a record of everybody that's worked there. No one at A&W should have ever gone unpaid. It's not free training, and it's not an unpaid position. This isn't missionary work. It was actually employment, legal employment. So the reason I'm mentioning all of this is the person I left on the list of the murdered list, because it's bugging me about police work, the police force, crimes and solving them, what they're doing with all the evidences and information, depending on how long it goes. Like the Highway of Tears website expires, and then instead of the police continuing to pay and keep it operating and leaving it up and being responsible for it, they let it lapse, and then somebody else bought the website and did something else with it, which is also wrong, because now my shirts are no good. And I have no way of owning the website. And somebody like me that wants to work on this and continue to talk about crime and continue to talk about Satan and continue to share relevant and relatable scriptures to this would like to own that website and keep it up and running for the right reason. So Janet Smith went missing at 22, 1924. So she had a roommate that lived with her. She'd been discovered by a fellow suite mate with a gunshot wound through her temple and a .45 caliber revolver near her right hand. The fellow suite mate was a Chinese immigrant named Wang Fun Sing. He also worked as a domestic worker alongside Smith on the night of the murder. Singh claims to have heard what sounded like a car backfiring, and then went down to the cellar of the house where he found Smith's body dead. Although authorities and the coroner who examined her body both initially thought that Smith killed herself, many people believed that she had actually been the victim of murder. She was a Scottish immigrant who worked as a nursemaid and was found dead in the cellar of her residency in 1924. Now, the gun was left there. And so all I'm thinking now, based on our ability to test bullets and guns and things, is where's the gun? Where's the revolver, and where is Steven Seagal? Where are the professionals today who could take that weapon and go over it again like a fine-tooth comb with gloves on and everything to find any more evidence that would suggest there was another person in the basement with her, who then had the time to leave the basement and then leave the house before the Chinese immigrant, who was in the house upstairs on another floor, to come down at his own pace. Certainly didn't hurry up. It wasn't rushing. Dun, 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 dun. To get all the way down to the cellar where she was found alone, dead, with a bullet in her head and a gun next to her. And at the end of it all, people are like, we don't think she did this to herself. We think it was murder. But they left it just like that. Now, without that gun, you can't go anywhere else, right? You can't exhume her, make any other comparisons. You can't do anything else without the gun. And so what's the point of police work and anything we're doing around crime if you don't keep the evidence forever, right? It's time-stamped, locked up, sealed properly, and remains safely as an unsolved murder, and it's evidence for this unsolved murder always. So if I can have my life completely erased and forgotten employment-wise and never get paid for those 2 weeks from A&W with interest at a company I'm actually still employed by all technical means, then it is very possible that these people are making the same erroneous mistakes around our crimes and crime scenes and evidence saved, or at least evidence supposed to be saved after a certain amount of time. Because nobody wants to keep up on the paperwork. You should always have a backup of paperwork, not just copies of stuff on computers and disks. Flash drives, sorry, my flash drives are in the girls again. So these things, they break, fall apart. You lose them, they get wet, they get wrecked. They're not indestructible. So scanning the paperwork and having that stuff as a backup on your computers, desktops is great, but you should still have all of the evidence. And of course, you can't scan or seal a gun online on your computer file. So that bugged me about her situation. So a lot of these people have weird stories like that. But that was the one that I just wanted to share the most about how he's supposed to solve stuff if there are people that are getting the chance to get in there and throw all that away. I have to dig up a story about the original creation of RCMP. I want to share with people and the problems that started right from that point, which correlates to the beginning of all of these murdered people and unsolved crimes. And you'll find it very relevant that I'll share on another episode, but I want to try to get through more names. So I'm just going to say the names. Peace be with these people. May your souls rest at ease that your names have been said out loud and people have heard your names being said. And to all your loved ones, some of which are probably still alive, some of which probably passed away without knowing the conclusion to what happened to you as their loved one. So 1973, Pauline Ivy Dudley, she was 17, went missing, Milton, Ontario. 1982, Attila Altikat, 45, Ottawa, Ontario. 1976, Rona Margaret Duncan, 16, North Vancouver, British Columbia. 1956, Susan Cadeau, she was 5 years old, London, Ontario. 1977, Catherine Hawkes, 34, Cartierville, Quebec. 1995, Diane Dobson, 36, Windsor, Ontario. 1981, Kelly Cook, 15, Tabor, Alberta. 1981 to 1983, Theodore Frederick Camp, 46, Dawson City, Yukon. 1994, Melanie Cabay, 19, Masouche, Quebec. 1993, Dino Bravo, 44, Laval, Quebec. 1979, Banff, Jane Doe, 24 to 25 years of age, they have an estimate of. Banff National Park, Alberta. 1993, Sheila McIndoe Henry. She was 26, Vancouver, British Columbia. 1977, Jocelyn Houle, 24, Saint Calixte, Quebec. 1996, Jane and Catherine Johnson, 2, 36 and 8, Turner Valley, Alberta. 1995, Chantal Galad, 28, Vancouver, British Columbia. 1983, Andrea Scherf and Bernd Gorik, 23 and 26, Chetwynd, British Columbia. 1977, Hélène Monast, 18, Chambly, Quebec. 1981, Dana Bradley, 14, St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. 2000, André Desjardins, 69, Montreal, Quebec. 1980, Gérald Lapierre, 50 to 59, they have an estimate of Saint Geneviève de Joly, Quebec. 1983, Paul Vallop, 56, Toronto, Ontario. 1972, Ursula Schultz, 19, Saint Philippe, Quebec. 1995, Craig Abrams, 28, Vancouver, British Columbia. 1987, Naomi Lee Desjarlais, 21, Regina, Saskatchewan. 1982, Diane Aubert, 23, Quebec City, Quebec. 1990, Alfred and Dolores Palmer, 71 and 35, Medicine Hat, Alberta. 1995, Ramona Lisa Wilson, 16, Smithers, British Columbia. So she would have been on the list. That would have been part of the missing and murdered era. 2000, Hanai Othman, 16, Rexdale, Ontario. 1977, Claudette Poirier, 15, Saint Lucien, Quebec. 1988, Debbie Fay Pelletier, 27, Regina, Saskatchewan. 1977, Joanne Dorian, 17, Fabreville, Quebec. 1959, Lynn Harper, 12, Clinton, Ontario. 1999, Jason McCooley, 19, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. 1978, Lisson Blais, 17, Montreal, Quebec. 2000, Reuben Grant, 19, Etobicoke, Ontario. 1975, Miriam Peters, 16, Toronto, Ontario. 1994, Mindy Tran, 8, Kelowna, British Columbia. 1971, Mary Ann Plett, 29, Edmonton, Alberta. 1979, Dora Ferguson, 22, Hanwell, New Brunswick. 1989, James Jim Allen Killam, 39, St. John's, New Brunswick. 1982, Stéphane Gauthier, 12, Montreal, Quebec. 1997 to 1998, Temistico Casas, also known as the Conception Bay John Doe. Conception Bay John Doe, so they didn't know his name. Late 30s to early 40s in Conception Bay, Newfoundland, Labrador. 1973 to 1974, Carol DuPont, 18, St. Therese, Quebec. 1974, Beverly Lynn Smith, 22, Raglan, Ontario. And I'm going to end there because I just reached the 21st century list line there, and my gigs are starting to run low because I've been tethering off my phone to my computer and I have to go to work. So I will share scriptures to go with this below, but basically, God be with us. Canada is not a safe place. Canada has not been a safe place, and Canada continues to remain an unsafe place. And Americans need to know more about that, and more about us, and more about our crime. and understand that you can't amalgamate with us and be one with us. We're not the same. Our culture isn't the same. Our idealisms aren't the same. Our interests aren't the same. Our interests of food, clothing, ancestry is not the same. Um, and if we can't take care of our own crime and know that it's not safe to be here and have people coming here, then they should be aware, on behalf of themselves, that they need to think twice about whether or not coming over here and wanting to grow through this extension would make any sense. Where if these are not under control now, what's it to stop it from just spreading over there, right? So we need to talk more about the evil and tell these people, all of the crime people, you can't do this anymore. You can't stay. You're not welcome here. And we will keep talking about you until it stops, until you go, or until we catch you and end it ourselves. So peace out for today from my Let's Talk About Crime, and the list. The link is below. I'll be back to share more from that list, and then we'll move on to other lists where I will be focusing basically on the current era of the deadliest era of dead people, from the maid, from the overdoses, from the murders, and the missing people, and the currently reported missing people, from mental illness missing, to the same outstanding, have we solved any of these matters of killers, or are they still among us, kind of thing. And there are people being re-released after committing heinous crimes that are still among us. So we need to evaluate what to do about all of that, like castration, hysterectomies, making sure they don't get to date anybody, making sure they don't get to see whatever remaining children they have alive, literally refusing them jobs, right? They just stay at home on their social assistance, doing nothing, have no access to the internet, whatever. Just, we shouldn't even be releasing people like that. So we have stuff to talk about. So think about on that. I'll see you all out there. Stay alive, stay well, stay safe, stay warm. Have a good Sunday. Pray to God. Have a good dinner. Read your Bible. And have a good week ahead. Peace out. From Now TV Canada, Vancouver. Bye.